So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle Services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yirmiyahu the prophet, known as Isaiah, we find layers or then understandings of the spring feast, the autumn feast found in Leviticus the 23rd chapter, and the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we read then Isaiah or Yirmiyahu the prophet, let's then make an analysis what's going on then with what Isaiah has mentioned in the 23rd chapter regarding then the merchants of the earth being restored to their places. Places obviously of leadership, however, they are not at liberty to do whatsoever they want. The point is that these people, then they are in line what with then the sons of Ishmael started. So then, understanding a bit the Bible, very important. We know that Abraham, he had a covenant with the mighty eternal Creator, and then at some point in time he went to Egypt, and then when he came out of Egypt he was given then animals and camels. Then he was also given a servant by the name Hagar. And then Abraham had then a relationship with this lady, and they had a son. His name was Ishmael. Then he was a king. Now the point where we can then explore is then, by the time Joseph, many years later, many years later, he was sold into slavery, and he was sold into a caravan of the Ishmaelites. So it's already given you an idea that then the transportation trade was then obviously very dominant on the land. So then during this period of time of the restoration period, what is the most important point that then government should obviously focusing on? Infrastructure, such as railroads, and then roads themselves, trucking, and then ships, and also air, via air. As we can understand, there are some great news from Yucatan News regarding the news from Mexico regarding then the most important market of the world, named as Dragon Mart. The construction is absolutely halted at this point in time. So then let's make an analysis, the importance of understanding Daniel the 11th chapter as a chapter that runs simultaneously tabernacling and the Gentile level as far as the trade of the end. It doesn't have to be a genius to understand then a link with Yirmiyahu, with Daniel and Revelation. And then the merchants of the earth, explained in the 8th chapter of Revelation. And then later on chapters also makes a reference of the merchants. Yirmiyahu the prophet, known as Isaiah, also mentioned regarding then the merchants of the earth. So then governments and the leading of governments as far as what then the world should do and focus on does not come anymore from leaders of nations, but is coming from merchants. But obviously those politicians, they are responsible. They're going to be somewhere in line with freighting and infrastructuring and providing more jobs and so on and so forth. So what would be then the most important point as far as election? If a person then is involved with being ready for an election, what would be then the greatest point? Besides taking care of the problems of the country, obviously should be important. But the future, as we read from the Bible, it is absolutely related with infrastructuring and merchantship. Now, the construction in Dragon Mart over there in Cancun, Mexico, was only halted because the Mexican government found some fraudulent dealings regarding then the environment. Not sure if China had some sort of involvement or if they had bribed somebody there to give the information or whatsoever the situation was. But later on, they found then these documents then fraudulent for some reason, and these reasons obviously they were not divulged. But what we know of as far as what then the newspaper, virtual newspaper, was then explaining was the construction of Dragon Mart Cancun is then halted. And for the Americas, we can simply regret this decision on one side, and then it's a relief on the other side. Firstly then, the importance of Dragon Mart is then it confronts the governments that they must work. They must invest on infrastructure. If they don't do this, they wallow around and try to steal from the governments as much as they can. On the other side, when then Dragon Mart is then active, the competition then is going to be fierce. In other words, the price then of the products must be reduced. And by reducing the price, the taxes must be reduced. And I have to have some sort of a gain to compensate for it, and then obviously is the percentage of taxation when people are buying with virtual systems. That's the whole situation. For instance, Bitcoins being regulated by the great country of Great Britain is an example of normalizing a way of using monetary system for buying, purchasing, and investing on products. Because the most important point of China is the direct link with the Central Bank of China and each computer. Once they have these link, then it's going to be extremely hard for central banks and banks to make a deal with the rights of users of computers. As these monetary virtual systems are then regulated, then we can understand percentages then being straightened out. Now a person can buy via Bitcoin. They can get their money from any country they are found at. They can convert their monies, and they can buy Bitcoins and store in their computers. Now, the place where they purchase products from, if the other side they are not honest, they are not obliged or then obligated to pay taxes. And by not paying taxes, The next point is investment. As they invest on products, they can project what nations then are going to be dealing with, and as these nations are purchasing these products, depending on how much you invest, you get a percentage per month. That's the greatest gaming point of China. And quite obviously, not very many nations, they have this understanding and thinking, what would be then of the stock exchange if you convert the stock exchange in your computer, where you can invest your own money in any product you want. You don't invest anymore in companies, though when you invest in a product, obviously it's going to be directly going to a company. But you yourself can do the investments rather than paying a person to do it for you. It's no longer a gamble anymore, but it's a direct system regulated by the computer. Thus, when we read Daniel the 11th chapter, you'll find then an alien god, where the knowledge shall increase. Thus then the Dragonic period. Nations don't have the answers yet. How are they going to get around with these new virtual systems, yet they are not linked with central banks? And the point is not using as money laundering. The point is investing in the Chinese system. Another point is, the Holy Instructions gives us a few understandings as far as, let me give an example. Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah, known as Jeremiah. He was the great prophet. Yet on the 26th chapter explains then in such a way where then the Almighty Creator never intended. Explained in such a way such as, if the nation then is not obedient as per the instructions, and if they do not listen what the prophets were saying to them, then the Creator was going to make then a model of curse, or a cursing situation regarding the nation of Israel. The Creator never said this. The point is this: what the Creator was mentioning to the prophet is they should observe very intently what was spoken. The time Israel had owned the land for centuries, they never kept the yearly Shabbat. Every 7 years cycle they should have a year where then the soil should rest. If you observe very intently, Israel never kept the holy yearly Shabbat of the 7-year cycle. They never kept these years then for the land to rest. And the Creator said that He would give at least, not once, not twice, but thrice of the amount of the yield of the land. So then it states then even in the 9th year they would be eating from the time before. So then when Jeremiah was then prophesying, was not the fact that the Creator was cursing the nation. They were not observing the principles they should observe. So they were inflicting upon themselves a problem because they were not focusing on what then the holy instructions were saying. So what Jeremiah was saying was not a curse, was saying if they are not observant of what the mighty Creator has said, then they would bring upon themselves then go into captivity. If you make the calculations from the 490 years that the nation owned the land, how many years they stayed in exile? Was it not 70? Now do the calculation. And the time, every 7 years, a year should rest, and so on and so forth. If you make the calculation, it's roughly 7 years. So what we are saying is an universal law, universal instructions, and they never change. So then, Isaiah the prophet, known as Yirmiyahu, has stated very plainly in the 23rd chapter, and then the merchants of the earth, they are going to be placed during this time of the restoration period as contempt against the kingdoms of this earth, because nations, they have abused, misused, and mistreated the people very badly. And governments of this world, they have no competence in doing what is coming in the future, because firstly, they have a history of what they have done, and quite honestly, because the whole instructions were already saying centuries ago how it should be. Some politicians are responsible, some politicians are not. However, Daniel the 11th chapter explains a couple of words in Hebrew, very important. Explains then where there are lies, for instance. The analysis of the whole instructions, those are not lies. Those they have, it's planning. And then the other word, you'll find then where there are plots. Those are related directly of a situation of a plan. So then you exchange lies for planning, and then you have then the word lease. So then, the United States at the moment is obviously yet very prominent as far as the USD, or their own monetary system. China is replacing the USD with their own money. From the Holy Instructions, what we understand is this. Before China launching this system, including the third icon of investment, and then using the rights of each user of computer directly linked with the Chinese bank, because it protects the system via the rights of the user. So then, besides this very important point of using the existing protection of each user directly linked with the Bank of China, you have then the United States holding back in what they have dominance with the USD. So then, what the Holy Instructions are saying via Daniel the prophet of the Gentile level is United States must lease the system of China. So then the system can be launched. There is a reason why then the Dragon Mart in Cancun has halted. However, it won't be halted for a lifetime. There is a time and place where the United States, as you would understand, imagine a huge rock on the top of a volcano. The system must be launched. And the United States can be wallowing around trying to find other answers other than what it was already spoken via the holy instructions. At some point in time, this system must be launched, and the U.S., either ready or not, must be obviously compliant with. Now the compliance is then via this leasing. So the word in Hebrew truly is not related with plots, but leasing. Based from this understanding, then the other sections of the entire chapter of Daniel, mostly related with the restoration period, the Gentile level, shows us the economical plan of this time of the restoration period, combining Daniel with Isaiah or Yeshayahu, and then Revelation. These manuscripts, they have a similitude of understanding, or topics, structuring, but requires further study because these scriptures, they must be taken apart via content and context so they can be matched up, and one complements the other. So then, since we understand the United States has no other way other than leasing this system from China, and the United States already has an idea of what it is. If they don't, then they would be truly ignorant. But quite honestly, the Federal Reserve has an idea of this new system of investment, and then they must act. At some point, the rock won't be able to hold the lava in a volcano. So then, this means then there is a link directly with the Chinese yen and this system leased by the United States using the USD. Now, as far as the holy instructions we understand, Daniel the 11th chapter explains of this God with non-capital G, increasing the knowledge, simply means the computer, doing trade via computer. And the United States won't be able to change the system of China. Whatsoever China then places on paper must remain intact. Now, how U.S. uses this leased system is that what's going to bring lots of great wealth, as stated in Daniel 11. The United States will come out very prosperous in this deal, but the system must be launched. Later on I'm going to explain more, because layering these understandings then gives us a glimpse of the importance of infrastructuring, and then the importance of planning for an election. Give an idea, for instance, in Great Britain, Heathrow Airport is very congested. It's very busy, and they had plans a while back of either constructing another airport or then making some sort of repair or then expansion of the existing airport. Quite honestly, what would be wise is having an airport for customer use and the other airport only for trade. because Great Britain can talk with the great freighters of the earth, such as UPS, DHL, FedEx. And Great Britain could make a deal with them and having them finance a combination of government and then private money, and then doing some sort of a discount on taxes later on. But then having an airport for trade use only versus then the other airport for people's use. It shows a great deal of wisdom and obviously in line with the Holy Instructions. Later on I'm going to evaluate more, so please stay tuned, much more coming up.